Welcome back to Cards and Comics, guys. Today I have my National Sports Card Collector Convention 2024 wrap-up. And I know I'm really late, and there are some factors as to why I'm late. One is for the third year in a row, I've gotten a cold, gotten sick. But that wasn't the main, reason, or it's a contributing factor. Say 50% of why I'm so late. But there were some other things that went on. Life is just sometimes crazy, or it's, unfair and all those things. So, I had planned on, coming down on Thursday. And on that Wednesday, or earlier in that week, we got a notification that Michelle's youngest cousin died, 28 years old. So first cousin, Michelle's my wife, and it was really tough. For her personally, for the family. He has survived he was born with a heart defect, had a lot of surgeries, survived all that, and died. And I don't know really, I don't have all the details. I'm not going to speculate anything, but let's just say it was tragic and sudden, and everyone's devastated. It's just a devastating thing. So while this is happening, she'd already planned to be in Indiana, and I'd already planned on being in Ohio that week. So we kept our plans until we knew what was happening. And then, we were notified, what was going on Sunday, and the following Monday. So I had from Cleveland, which was on the way to Indy anyway, I went from there to home, to Indianapolis, to attend. And it was just really, really sad and tough. Originally, I wasn't going to take my family with me, my daughter, but, due to the circumstances, she came with me. And so none of that was planned. And so I was sharing a hotel room with Doug, Joe Wood Collector on YouTube. Great channel. Check him out. But, so she was kind of a third wheel. And she did great. I mean, it was just, all these things were, just things we couldn't, control. And another unfortunate event is I had to be at work on Monday due to obligations and things I couldn't control. So I drove all night from Indy to New York to get back to work. We got in at 5:30 in the morning on Monday morning, slept 3 hours, and I went to work. That was just rough. And then I got sick, and so I've been kind of fighting it the rest of the week. This is my fourth attempt to make this video. Honestly, it's been rough. Hard not to cough or just have issues with my voice. So let's try to get through it. And I appreciate everyone I met at the YouTube event. I got to say hi to Theo again. I miss New York Yank fan. I don't know what's going on, man. I just don't know. I don't know how we miss each other. But I just, it was cool to meet everyone. And I got to talk to Rob or Neo. Gave him a Manny Ramirez card. Just things like that made it fun. But it was hard, really hard, to have a lot of fun when there's things going on in your family life that's just that awful. And having to deal with that. So, and something about me, this isn't like, oh, poor me. It's that family, and just, having to experience that life thing, just sucks sometimes. This is not fair. And I think that's just, so it was really hard to have as fun as I did last year, because a lot of stuff was going on. And, but in the end, me and Doug had a good time. It's great to have someone there to hang out with. And I got some cool cards, and I think that, at the end of the day, that's what collecting's about. It's a distraction to get you guys, me and you, through the issues like that. So it was kind of fun to have something to kind of take my mind off all the things going on, work, driving. My daughter had to take her driver's test. That's one of the reasons we had to come back so quickly. All that stuff. So, and then, obviously the family issue. So But here we go. We'll start here with vintage. One card I picked up was kind of unexpected. Um, on my channel, I'm not known for pre-war, but I do collect Chief Bender. I just don't do a lot of pickups. I picked up a T213, a coupon this year, which I think is an awesome card. So I do have cool Chief Benders. I was looking for a T227 Bender. I've got a T3, so that's one of my favorite ones. Or a Ramley, or 1914 Crackerjack. Those are the kind of cards I was looking for. Unfortunately, the only T227 there was a little higher grade, which was fine, but just really expensive. And my budget wasn't like it was, last year when I had all the bigger cards, Ruth and Manimals and stuff. I had some money, but not enough to, I felt like to pay for that kind of card. So I let that one go. It was way over comp comparatively to the last sold as well. So I just went ahead and passed on it. And I was contemplating a lot of cards, and I ended up just getting this Joe Wood because I love Cracker Jacks. Cracker Jacks are hot. Now, this is a 15. The 14s are what's really hot. I mean, 14 Cracker Jacks are, some dealers said that people were going around like saying they were buying every one they could find. They were wiping, dealers out of 14 Cracker Jacks. So there is a little bit of a run on 14 Cracker Jacks right now, I believe. But I love all Cracker Jacks. I like the 15s when they come in the boxes. So this has the staining. Some 15s were part of a complete set you could have sent in for, I think, with box tops or coupons or something. Like a lot of stuff from that era was was coupons, or you could send ins and things like that, promotional items. So the 15 set was either in the box or you could send in for it. That's why you got some really high end 15s, because they were sold as complete sets or given away as complete sets or sheets, or not sheets, but so they were a lot better condition than if they were next to popcorn and peanuts and caramel. I think it presents really nicely outside the staining. And Joe Wood's a fascinating figure in sports card history. Kind of like a much better version of Rick Ankiel, who he pitched. He actually pitched really well, won over 30 games one year. Then he got hurt, and then he became a position player and played, I think 5 or 6 years as a position player. So just a really fascinating player. Mentioned a lot for Hall of Fame, Veterans Committee type. So he could be a guy that eventually makes the Hall of Fame. He has a very short career comparatively, but really good when he was good. So we'll see, but just a cool card. And I like Cracker Jacks, and they're a set that, it's just really cool and really fun to pick up. So yeah. So there you go. And, he played his contemporary was Babe Ruth too. So he's on a lot of cards of Babe Ruth. So first card up, 1915, Joe Wood, Cracker Jack. So my next 3 purchases for vintage, out of the next 4 were all from one dealer. And my original thought was to go in and get a 52 Topps Jackie Robinson. I couldn't find anything that I was really excited about. There wasn't any like 1s and 2s with perfect centering and damaged backs, or, the classic looks nicer than the grade. In all honesty, the stuff I saw was either way off center or looked at, mid or low grade for the grade that they were in, and price points at really expensive. So I found that, that wasn't going to work. I saw a few nice 53 Maze cards that I was considering, but I ended up spending a lot of time on the side of the show that didn't have the corporate booth. So the right side, I call it, the PSA side, the first day. And then I went to the other side on the second day, and I saw Payne sports cards. And, so the only guy that had cards I really liked was like Chappell and some of the guys that are a little higher priced. And I talked about that in my national video, and I'll give some examples here. I go over to Payne, and he had a lot of great cards, and he was fairly priced, and it's like Payne. So check him out, man. If you go to shows, he is fairly priced. He won't come off tons, but he's already fairly priced, so it's like he doesn't need to make a good deal. First up I got from him was a card I was really looking for, because I don't really expect this card to be at shows in nice grade because it's a pretty rare card. Um, in good condition. So this was a nice just bonus pickup for me. It's the 58 Clemente Yellow Team. So this is the variation, the tough to find variation. It's a 6, but it's a really nice 6. It's off center a little bit, but it's got great color, and I'll show you the whiteness and the sharpness of the corners. This lower right corner is where you see that little bit of damage there, a rounding. But other than that, it's got 3 pretty near mint corners, plus great color, great image, not a lot of print, not a lot of black print dots smearing the image. It's just a really clean copy of this card in a PSA 6, or sorry, SGC 6. You can see the back. Here you go. Here's the back. So to me, this is a great copy of this card. It's a very expensive card in anything other than, 4 or 5, honestly. So, 7s and 8s get really expensive. And I used to have an 8 a long time ago and wish I still had it, but I don't. So this card is just super nice. Price point was great. It was right in where it needed to be. It came off a little bit to make me really want to buy it. And, again, yeah, do I wish it was perfectly centered? Sure, but it presents really nicely. Very packed fresh. I'll show you that color and gloss. It's just a very glossy, very packed fresh card. So now I have both 58s, and so I'm going to show off my other 58. So here's my other 58, and it's my 58 white letter. So you can see the variation there and the team name. The team name. And I was lucky to get the 8.5 back pre-COVID at a price point that people would consider to be kind of crazy. But you can see the difference in color. The color is a little deeper in the 6. So there are some attributes in this card that's a little nicer than this card. So again, technically this card's better centered, better corners, but this card has a little bit better color. So, but there you go. The bookends to my 58 Clemente collection right there. So a lot of fun to pick up that yellow letter Clemente. Sorry, you got glare going on. Oop. Try to prevent too much glare going on. So next up is a card I was really looking for. This is a card that I talked about a little bit. I only need 2 Hank Aaron's to complete my Hank Aaron collection. The 54 and the 58. And so I'm not ready to pick up the 54, meaning I'm going to do the 54 when I kind of have either a lot of cards to sell or a lot of cards to trade, or just, in a moment when I have a lot more, let's say, income available to buy a card, to get it in the 6, 7 type condition I want to find it in. So that was kind of off the table. I knew I didn't want to, get the 54 this trip, but I thought the 58 was feasible. The only one I found early on in the show was at Chapel, my Chapel, and he had one. I think he had it $1,500. It was a 7. And then I saw this one from, again, Payne Sports Cards, and it, for one thing, was $500 cheaper. And then he came off that price point a little bit, and it was much nicer, better color, much less print, wider border. So I think Chapel's may have been a little bit better center, but not much. Not much at all, actually. So to me, this was a far superior card, and it was priced, over $500 cheaper. So that really, sold me on this card. And I looked at comps, and he actually had a little under comp. So a really nice, 7, and he had a 7.5 as well, but he had the 7.5 price at $2,000 versus $1,000 for this. And I felt it couldn't justify the extra $1,000 for a card that was slightly better in color and just a hair better centered. So I picked up this card for, a little bit of, I thought it was, much better than the other 7 I saw. It's under comp, and it just, wasn't worth the extra $1,000 to pick up that extra half grade. Just so I really love this card. And it really fits into my collection. It looks great when I put it up against my other 58 Willie Mays. Now, the last card though I picked up, and again, my 3-player collections I put together is Mays, Aaron, and Clemente. My last card I picked up, was able to pick up a Mays card. So again, I talked about 53, 52s, but I saw this card and I wasn't really looking for this year, but then I saw it and I just fell in love with it. And it was the 54 Willie Mays. And this card just really shone like a diamond in that case. The centering, the color, the image, it really popped. And then when I turned it over on the back, you could just see how packed fresh the card is by that green back. It's super vibrant. This card it's just a card that looks like it just came out of a pack, and that's just awesome. You can find cards from the 50s that look like that. And then you can kind of see the gloss on the card. It is just a beautiful 7 Mays. So I was super stoked, and so by taking getting some I was able to work him down on the price to where everything pretty much, when you put it all together, came in under VCP average or last comp in terms of just total price. So how can you beat that for cards that are really nice? And in some cases, it's hard to find. These 2 cards here are not easy to find. And this card here is really tough to find, not angle cut. Like 54s are notorious for that. So again, just it's great to find this card. So so I felt like I felt like I accomplished a lot on my vintage cards. But then went over to a friend of mine from Indianapolis, and he had this card, and I was pretty shocked to see he had a 57 Cons Clemente, and Chappell had 2 raws that he wanted, I think 12 or actually I think he wanted 1,700 a piece for the raw copies. And to get a graded 1, because they would have graded 1, they were pretty rough. In fact, they looked like they may they may have had some work, they had weird angle cuts to them. One of them did anyway. Pretty, looked odd, just how it was cut. So one of them may not have actually graded. The other one looked like it would, but they were 1s, at the best. So this came, and so Chappell wanted 17 for his. I got this one for 450. So I felt like I definitely won this one. You can see the back and the hot dog stains, what you want to kind of see on a card like this. So I felt like I did really well on this card. Again, this is my second Cons Clemente. I've got a 62, 7.5. And now Chappell did have a 61 that I thought was fairly priced at 15. So, I'm going to continue to go to shows, and if he still has it, he had it, I think, at the last show too. It might be a card I eventually pick up. But, I'm slowly picking up the Cons cards. I think it's awesome. The other card of the show on Clemente's side that I'm really bummed out I didn't get was I only need one more O-Pee-Chee base card, not the league leaders or whatever, but just his base cards. I need one more. I need the 68 to complete my set, because in the mail right before the show I received this, which is the 69 O-Pee-Chee 7.5, which I purchased right before the show. So now all I need is the 68, and I've got my base Clemente run done. And Leighton, who I did a deal with to sell him some cards, had it. He wouldn't sell it. It was for display only. So I'm a little bummed by that, because I really wanted that card. And that would have been the first card I purchased at the show if he would have been willing to sell it. But now I have this, so my Peachy run's almost done. I've got my Clemente run I'm working on for Con. So the player collecting pickups of the show were very strong, and I was able to move forward on a bunch of sets. So pretty excited there. So a lot of fun on the vintage side. So moving on to the kind of the 90s cards, because that's the other, thing I collect a lot of. Now, the trade night, there was 90s cards at the show. 2 or 3 dealers did specialize in 90s cards, but I found one Griffey guy who was very fairly priced, and he had some good stuff. Just stuff, I already had, or he had a few cards I needed, but, they weren't super duper rare, except for some patch autos he had that were from sets that he was building. So, or a set he was building. So, nothing like that I, just couldn't live without. But he had some other cards besides Griffey and I picked up one card from him there. But trade night had some guys walking around with some cool stuff. So the first card I picked up on trade night was this 97 Ultra Thurman Thomas Platinum Medallion. You can see the Platinum Medallion, that cool platinum foil. I'm in the Buffalo area, so his cards are so popular. Him and Jim Kelly. I felt like it was a great deal. I think it was like around $100. So the PSA 9 Platinum Medallion Hall of Famer was a lot of fun to pick up, and so that was my first one. But the same guy had a lot of 2 players. He had Barry Sanders and Michael Jordan, and and then after I did my deal with him, you could tell like he loved 90s football, but he loved Jordans too. And the thing is, Jordans take a much heavier bag to be able to go and buy Jordan cards. You have to really, getting good Jordan cards takes a lot of money. And so he was willing to move on a couple cards. So the first card I picked up was this 97 Finest Silver Embossed Refractor. And this card is just incredibly attractive. I've always said that, if you can't get the embossed golds, though, the silvers are a great consolation prize, because they got the superfractor pattern. They have this great shine to them. They have the double shine, so the back is shiny. Look at that. Double shine. They have the embossed. They just don't have the die cut. So you're missing the die cut, which I understand is cool. But this card has still 80% the fun. It has the die cut and a beautiful refractor pattern. And this card was, to me, really reasonable. I was looking on eBay for a similar card, and it was cheaper than that one. So I went ahead and pulled the trigger. So really excited about this card. Even though it's an 8, I don't care about the grades on these cards. I've talked about that a whole bunch. It's really about the rarity. If a card's really rare, I don't care as much about the grade. And so this is my first real embossed refractor of a superstar. I've got a few other embossed, but they're kind of like, like Tom Glavine, or, they're not super duper stars. This is a top tier embossed silver refractor. So it's the first one I've picked up like that. So over here. And then my last football card I picked up is the one on the Instagram. It's the biggest pickup in totality for the whole show. So this is my biggest pickup. And it's a monster card. I walked away from it, and then I came back to it and just did the deal because I had to do it. And he only did it because he was, again, collecting Jordan cards. But it was the 99 EX Century Essential Credentials Future Barry Sanders. And this card is numbered out of 61. There you go, right there. And it's a PSA 9. It's such a beautiful card. And he did have the 98 at double the price. So, I chose this card because I think I honestly love this set. I pulled the Todd Helton recently out of baseball, and I just think the set's it's got so much going on for it. Between the foil and the shininess and everything going on with the set. It's kind of like you're only going to, I think in the future, some of these cards like rubies and PMGs and, and credentials, you're going to get a few chances. And then after that, they're going to get so higher price because they truly are rare, that, you'll get priced out at some point. And so, I do think on cards like this, I am going to get priced out. So It's cool to have one of them. You know, I may not get all the essential credential Sanders cards, by I have one, and it's a cool one, and it's a nice one, and it's a number 61 one. So I was excited to pick it up. It's a beautiful card. It's stunning. It's a showstopper. You pull this card out, and anyone who's a 90s kid immediately goes like, that is a cool card. So it's one of those cards where I can bust out and say, oh yeah, I got something cool from the 90s, and here it is. And everyone looks at it and goes like, yeah, that is a cool card. And I think that was what was fun, being able to get a card like that. So going into baseball, so obviously I'm a Griffey collector, but I talked about in a previous video, really, I love some of the 90s sets that have Hall of Famers from like the 70s and 80s, started in the 70s and 80s. And, because it's just cool to see some of those, kind of out of context, like they weren't a 90s player. They were kind of ending their career in the 90s, but they still had some cool inserts made of them. First up from the Griffey guy I talked about earlier is this Joe Carter, Rave, number to 150. So this is Joe Carter as a Baltimore Oriole. So it's cool. It's like, it's $50 and not expensive for, this is what I love about it. It's like, $50 not expensive. Some people are like, that is expensive, but it's a cool card from the 90s, a Hall of Famer. And comparatively, like, there's so many cards out there you could spend $50 on that aren't as cool as this card. So, Joe Carter, it was a lot of fun. Next up were two cards I picked up on trade night. The guy had, both of these. And, I think they're just cool. Like, to be able to pick these up at a trade night. They were inexpensive. I think I paid $100 for the pair. We've got John Smoltz and Eddie Murray, the credentials. So they're numbered out of $2.99. So they're not the essential credentials, which has kind of the space pattern. These are the, the tier below that, but they're still really cool. Averaging like $50 again, like the Joe Carter. And you can see numbered out $2.99. So it was fun to pick up two Hall of Famers. Again, not a lot of money, and it was just like something fun to pick up in the 90s realm. Now, the big card I picked up at the show, obviously, was a card that that I really overlooked. Honestly, like I didn't know it was at the show. It was a card that actually I was tracking on eBay, and it disappeared. So I thought it sold, and I had looked at a bunch of Flair Legacy Row Zeros, but I got burned on one of those prior, and they were priced okay, but there was like, I think 3 or 4 in the show, and comparatively, there's only one of these cards I picked up in existence with him as a Mariner, whereas there's a lot of Flair Legacy Row Zeros as a Mariner Griffey's made. So I was kind of like, well, this is a little more unique. Same price point. I mean, it's very close in price point. But it was the Ultimate Victory, way parallel, or, parallel numbered out of 100. You can see it 90 out of 100 right there. And you just don't see it very often. I went ahead and just grabbed it. And this is kind of like 1 hour before the show ended kind of pickup. It is, I kind of have a little bit of a habit of picking up kind of like rare Griffies that are a little bit more oddball or not mainstream. Maybe it's because I just don't have, I don't have all the funds to get, the established or the embossed refractor or the Fortune 15. I lose those in auction, but I can win these because, they're not the top tier. And I think I love them more because they're just as rare, but they're not, top tier. And I think this one looks amazing. It's got that deep foil, almost like flame foil, wave foil. So, I was lucky to see it before I walked down, and the guy didn't want to do anything. I mean, he took $200 of another Griffey card in trade, but wouldn't take PayPal. And then I went to get money out of the ATM. All the ATMs were out of cash. So I, told Doug, hey, give me some, if you got some cash, I'll, let me have it, and I'll PayPal you after the show. Cause it was almost over. We were walking out. We were leaving, that was the last day anyway for both of us. and he had made his purchases, so it worked out for both of us. I PayPal'd him after the show. Unfortunately, I made a mistake on that card because he wanted 14. I gave him 200 in trade, and then when we went to do the deal, we put $1,000 cash on the table, and he said, "Oh, that's not enough. It's 14." Because I gave him 2, and then Doug gave him 1,000 plus the card's 14. He's like, "Oh, you're short 200," and I don't know what he was doing. I guess he forgot to count the card. I didn't catch it, so we gave him an extra $200, and then we did the deal. And then we went back and we were kind of counting our money because I gave him the $800. Because I gave him the cash because at the show on PayPal, but I paid for the hotel. We were settling up our debts and we did our money thing, and I'm like, "Hey, we're $200 off." And we kind of went back through that deal. I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think he gave us that trade-in value. I think we ended up giving the guy $1,600. So it was kind of a, oops. I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I'd have paid more attention. And that just goes to show you, doing deals fast, things are happening and you got to pay attention. I don't think he did it maliciously. I think he made a mistake. I made a mistake, but the mistake went in his favor this time, not in my favor. And so it's just kind of a bummer that happened. But in all, it's still a great card, and I'm still glad I have it. But it was a little bit more expensive than it should have been. So that's the show. Closing thoughts, about Cleveland and, Fanatics Fest coming up. Seeing that show, seeing that there was more 90s, but it was still a rough 90s show, meaning like there was some stuff there, but not the really good rare stuff. Still, I don't think I saw 197 embossed refractor in the whole show. I didn't see an established. I didn't, there were some essential credentials. There were some of those, but again, if you look at Jordans versus Griffey's at the show, you could have gotten tons of Jordan autos and a lot of the really cool rare stuff were there, and they were high priced, but they were there. I saw a few Griffey autos, one Mantle Griffey, just Griffey auto by itself. I was actually going to buy at one point and I missed out. Some guy bought it. Congrats. Wasn't an awesome price, but it was okay. It was in the ballpark, but one in the whole show. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it just, from that perspective, there is still some work to do on that side of the 90s, but on the vintage side, it's not that there's too much vintage. I think there's too much vintage that's just not rare. Not, either, and I'm not even talking about the low end commons that people are putting sets together with. That's actually more fine to me. It's the fact that there's just a glut of 50s through 70s, let's say 56 through 70s and 80s cards. They just aren't rare. So you see table after table after table with the same exact cards, sometimes, in different grades, but just like the same cards over and over. And the really rare stuff was just hard to find. The other side of it too is on the pre-war side, just tons of T206 cards. But when you get into the really rare T3s or just cards like T3s and other sets, are just really hard to find anything really unique and rare. There's some out there, but the overwhelming majority is pretty easy to find, high pop count, 50s through 80s vintage and some T206, which has really high pop counts in the low grade. So I think that's just one of the things I would look at is like, can the National get more dealers that have different unique material, different things that you don't see on every table? One vintage dealer and some others told me that they don't bring the good cards to these shows anymore. Like on the pre-war side, they're just auction them because they get more money auctioning them. So like, they don't even bother bringing those cards to the National. Some dealers are there just to buy and they have just a minimal inventory. So it's just a little disappointing. Like you want to go to the National and see the best of the best, and then you find out that the best of the best is in a Love of the Game auction or in a different auction house, and no chance to even purchase, trade, or buy. So I think that's the one thing they have to watch out for the National going forward is, can we get more dealers there who have different inventory, more rare inventory, cooler stuff, like on the 90s side, pre-war side, and Sev just this real glut of 50 through 70s vintage, and the modern stuff's the modern stuff. It is what it is. But on the vintage side, there's so many tables that are very similar. So that's my thoughts. That's why my 2 cents on the National. I am going to do another video on kind of changes and things I like to see done, especially going into Fanatics Fest. So be on the lookout for that, and I'm going to be doing some more collection updates, another box break coming up soon. So a lot of content coming. It's been a while since I posted, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And I'm feeling better, so hopefully I'll continue more content. And I'll see you next time in Cards and Comics. Bye.